Every time a new Pokemon TCG set comes out, the landscape of the game entirely changes. The next set that's coming out is Pokemon TCG Journeys Together, and this weekend is the Pokemon TCG pre-releases. So if you guys are watching at the time of this, you're off to your pre-releases, you're going to go get some cool new flashy new cards, you're going to check out some awesome packs, and hopefully you get some product to open yourself at home, booster boxes, booster bundles, whatever. But if you're like me, a competitive TCG player, all I'm doing is buying singles. So what I'm going to do is go to TCG Player. You can use my link in the description below. All you have to do is click on it. It helps out the channel a ton. Once we're there, you can put the cards you want into your cart and check out from there. So what cards do you want to buy for the new set that are going to be competitively viable? You don't obviously want to buy a ton of stuff. You don't want to buy everything. We're not collectors. So today, my name is Rahul Reddy. I'm the #1 ranked trainer in Pokemon TCG in North America. And today we're going to talk about what every card you should buy from the Scarlet and Violet Journeys Together expansion is. I do one of these every new set release, and hopefully this helps you guys out. So I split up my categories into 3. Must-buy categories, which I think are cards that I'm going to almost always buy because I think they have potential, they're a useful deck, or they're going to change the landscape of the game entirely. And I'm going to talk about them at length here. My second category is could be spicy pickups, which I just think is decks or cards that could be okay. They're not super good right now, so I don't really know why I'd pick them up unless I'm speculating on them personally. But if I don't think I'm speculating on them personally, I probably won't pick them up until they end up being good, but they probably won't end up being too expensive. And then finally, it's a trap. These cards are probably just in there as bulk fillers for the set. They probably have alt arts or cool cards that collectors are going to enjoy. But personally, I'm not ever touching these cards, you know? So let's jump right into it. My must-buy cards are going to kick us off with the Ends engine. The Ends engine and the Hops engine are two sets of cards that I think are quite good, and they can make their own deck out of basically nothing. I think having 4 copies of the Darmanitan line lets you put in at least a 3/3 line if you want to, and maybe up the count if you want to as you're building your deck. The Blaze Ball Cannon attack is quite good, being able to play from behind with reversal energies and just kind of get in there. The Lidley's Clefairy is probably the single most impactful card in this set, with its Fairy Zone ability, making every Dragon-type's Pokemon weakness into Psychic, making Dragapult and Raging Bolt both completely playable matchups, and being able to use Full Moon Rondo, very easily power-upable, very easy to power up, I think is a better way to say that, but it is a very good card at basically dominating that one deck and one matchup, and is an easy inclusion in any deck. It's just a card that you need to buy. I think you're never playing more than 2 copies in a deck, but having 3 doesn't hurt just in case. And while players and collectors are opting to buy those higher rarity arts, I might buy some myself. I think the full art looks beautiful. You can just pick up the lowest rarity. I guarantee you they'll be cheaper because people are going to be opening tons and tons of product, which helps us out quite a bit as players. Then we have the Ends Zoroark engine. The Ends Zoroark engine is the lifeblood of the deck, and you do want to have a full 4/4 grip of this one for sure, because you do want to trade. Pretty much get 2 or 3 trades online each turn, go through your deck, set up your board, and get to that Night Joker attack, copying either Blaze Ball Cannon from Darmanitan or Ends Reshiram's Virtuous Flame, 2 wonderful attacks from the Ends Zoroark engine. I don't know if this deck is entirely going to be tier 1. It probably won't. It'll probably be tier 2 or 3, but this is one of the most put together decks that comes out in this expansion, where you can just kind of slot in a lot of cards from this new set and say, hey, I have the staple trainers from everything else. Then we have Hops Zacian, which has a close cleave attack. This card is also really, really good for the Hops engine, and I think can be splashed into other things as well once people figure out the metagame, because there is no bench barrier at the moment. With the Hops engine, you're doing a ton of damage and just basically amplifying that. That's the whole little gimmick behind it, whereas Ends engine copies the other attacks of its Pokemon. So you can use that Ends engine, or Hops engine basically, to get ahead and basically have a lot of aggression. The Ends Reshiram here is just basically a copy card for the Ends Zoroark. You're never actually attacking with this card itself, but you're able to copy Powerful Rage as well as Virtuous Flame for one big thrust of damage, because, that's basically the only 2 Pokemon Ends Zoroark has to work with. Hops Snorlax here comes in as a 2-of because it's got the Big Belly ability, which just boosts your Hops Pokemon damage by 30. You probably only ever want 1 in play at once because it doesn't stack. But you probably play 2 in the deck just because you don't want to prize 1. Now, this card is something that I was pleasantly surprised by seeing the inclusion of. It's the Dunsparce EX. Now, the Dunsparce is an engine that's probably going to become quite good in the new format because it's able to shuffle itself back in and draw 3 cards. And there's not a lot of really good shuffle draw or good draw effects in the format. So being able to get into the Dunsparce and draw some cards is pretty good for a lot of decks that don't want to keep guys on the board. So Goldengo, for example, or Charizard, who want to just leave themselves with their one big attacker saying, hey, you have to deal with this, or I'm going to be a problem. Now, the Dunsparce EX comes in as a tech attacking option. I don't think you're ever going to play more than one copy of this, but the Adversity Tail attack does 60 times the number of opponent's Pokemon EX in play. Basically, this says that if your opponent is playing poorly, you have one extra card to punish them on this to Dunsparce. So if your opponent's playing something like Terra Box or even the Ends deck and they're just overloading their board with EX Pokemon, you can just slam the Adversity Tail early on, and your opponents who thought they were safe maybe because your Goldengo or Charizard can't actually one-shot them are now in a pickle that they didn't expect. Then we have the Hops engine, with the Hops double being a free gusting effect with the Challenge Horn. I don't think you can ever really play more than a 2/2 line of this double in your deck, but it is a very useful card to have. Then you have the Hops Cramorant being able to do 120 if your opponent's on 3 or 4 prize cards. This card's actually splashable in a lot more decks than just the Hop engine, because you can just play this with the Hops Tool or the Stadium or even a copy of Snorlax in like single prize decks. I think it's going to shine, especially in like a Frostlass Monkey Doherty engine, where you're just basically doing a ton of damage and your opponent has to go through 6 prizes manually, where Hops Cramorant gets at least 2 turns of doing a ton of damage. So this card is a 3 of at least, and I think it's quite good for what it's supposed to do. Then we have some of the trainers and supporters in the set. Brock's Scouting is one that says get 2 basic, put them into your hand, or get an evolution, put it into your hand. Now this is like a pseudo way to get around Badoo if Badoo becomes super popular and you don't really want to discard cards out of your hand a lot. So Brock's Scouting could become quite a good way to search for Pokemon. Hops Bag and Hops Choice Band I think just go well together, and so does Postwick. It should be a 4 of, I think, the Postwick as well. I don't know why I put it as a 2 of, but these 3 should be basically the Hops engine where the bag searches for the Pokemon, the Choice Belt and the Postwick boost up your damage, and from there you're off to the races, doing a ton of damage with the Choice Belt and Postwick, as well as the Snorlax. You're hitting for 210 with the Cramorant, which is just an absurd amount of damage. Then we have Iris's Fighting Spirit. It says discard a card from your hand if you do draw until you have 6. I don't think this card is super playable, but it could be a splash tech card in decks that don't want to discard too many cards, but want to play out of their discard a little bit. So Iris's Fighting Spirit lets you do that while filling up your hand pretty efficiently. So 1 to 2 copies seems pretty reasonable. Lily's Pearl is a very good card as well, because the Lily's Pokemon specifically we're talking about is Clefairy, and when it's attached, it's going to be able to take 1 less prize card. So you can create this 2 prize absolute demon, make it a 1 prizer, and just kind of go into your opponent's face that's playing Dragapult and say, do something about this. So pretty useful for that deck. Then we have the Ends Castle and Ends PP up, both for the Ends deck. Ends Castle being free retreat, because Reshiram and Darmanitan both have a ton of retreat, and so does Zoroark. Lets you pivot between your options, basically just lets you go into Zoroark a lot easier. And then we have Ends PP up that attaches the basic Dark Energies from your discard pile to the Zoroark, which then lets you get in there and power up multiple Zoroarks over time and attack. Now we go to the spicy pickups. These are cards that I probably won't pick up myself, and I won't have a ton of explanation. So I'm going to kind of go into these. Magmortar and the Volcanion package kind of come together, where it's like the burn plus the 3 burn checkup. There's probably a deck that's in the works here that someone's probably going to cook up. I just don't know like how good it'll be, or like what that deck even could be. So I'm not really going to mess with the burn engine personally, but I think the Magmortar Volcanion deck could be quite good if it comes together. Then we have the Voltorb and Electrode package here. I think the Electrode isn't really necessary a lot of the time, but if Iono's deck ends up becoming good, I think the Voltorb is the main attacker in the deck, so you want to actually get to that point. Right now, I don't think the deck is very good because everything in the deck is too small, which means it just gets blown up pretty easily and it's pretty costly. So it's like, why would I play these cards when I can just play something like Raging Bolt at that point in time? But if the Iono's deck becomes good, then Voltorb is a card that becomes good. The Tadbulb and Bellybolt, same thing. The Bellybolt is currently just one of those cards where I'm like, why would I play this in anything besides Raging Bolt? If I do choose to play it, but I don't think it's even good enough to play in that deck because the Fanrotom engine just seems significantly better. But if I do think that the Iono's deck becomes good, then that one, the Kilowattrel and the Voltorb all become good. So just ignoring those for now. Then we have the Mamoswine and the Blaziken. I think these 2 cards in tandem are quite good to power up your board. I think Mamoswine is sneakily good, but I don't know how I would build it. I think there was some player at the Champions League that did quite well, like top 64 or something. So I'm sure if I can find their list and put it together, it'd be a really fun deck to play. However, the fact that you need at least 3 stage 2s in play on your bench, to actually one-shot anything is a little bit spooky, because you're not going to evolve up the same way, and there's no bench barrier either until our May set, so you're basically just getting your board blown up pretty quickly. And the Blaziken does accelerate the energies, which does help quite a bit. This Wailord is kind of cool because Wailord can now make you a 1 prize Chien-Pao Baxcalibur deck, basically, with the Hydro Pump attack. 10 plus 50 is kind of cool because you can get to 210 perfectly with this Hydro Pump and then go upwards from there. So it's like a cooler not a cooler, but like a different way to play like Chen Baxcalibur before that guy rotates. Then we have the Tapu Koko EX. Basically, this says 60 plus 20 for your bench, 20 times, sorry. So it's like an interesting little tech attacker for decks that want to use lightning types, but I don't think it's actually that good in practice because you actually don't one shot a lot of things unless you're playing a Skyfield deck, or sorry, Area Zero deck, and then at that point, there might just be better attackers like Lodes Clefairy. Then we have Levencia, which I think also comes into the Iono's deck. Some Goldango decks are playing the Levencia Stadium to use and get lightnings back if they're playing multiple copies of lightning. I just don't think that's better than playing just like a normal Goldango list with like Energy Search Pro and just like a bunch of SERs and stuff. You just don't have Pokestops. Then you have Ruffian, which is like a control card, just going to get 2 special energy. So not really the best here. Then we have Exchange Ticket, which I think is a unique card because we can shuffle our prize cards from the top into our prize cards and then put the prize cards that we have under the bottom. But I don't know how like good it's going to be because obviously decks there's no heavy ball anymore, so there's no way to interact with the prize cards, and so this is a great way. Then Spike Energy I think is just pretty mediocre because it's 2 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon, but everything one-shots everything, and Spike Energy you don't have a great opportunity to put it down. Finally, it's a trap. I'm not going to really go into too much explanation on these, but these cards just kind of suck, and yeah, we'll see why. I think the back part of the Lily's engine is pretty bad for what it's supposed to do. I think the Clefairy is the only good card in it, and the rest is just bad. This Lycanroc seems kind of cute, but the Spike Energy package just sucks. Ends Klinklang and Hops Corviknight are both the top end of those engines, and I just don't think you're ever going to reliably pull those off. So I just wouldn't invest stock into them or even buy the cards. Salamence EX, Amoonguss EX, Reshiram, Veluza, Mimikyu, Clodsire, and Alchemy are all the fluffer EXs that they've just thrown in. Random promo cards, random theme deck cards that they just have to randomly shove into a set every time. So, I don't be too remiss if you end up pulling these, but these guys just kind of slot their way in here as well. And finally, this is I don't remember the name of the card. It's like Bill and something, I think, but it's like draw 2, and if you have 10 or more cards in hand, draw 2 more, which is just like absolutely terrible as a supporter. Like a conditional draw 4 on having 10 cards in your hand is just not a reliable thing to do when Iono's in the format. So that's my buy list video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. And remember, if you're buying cards off of TCG Player in the next coming weeks when they are live, use my link in the description down below. It helps out the channel quite a bit. With that being said, peace out, everyone.